the IT chap to start the broadcast, and then once he has said that the broadcast has started on YouTube, I'll just put the word go into the chat so that you can see, and then co-chairs, if you want to begin your introduction from there. Okay. 1 second.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Krdc RBK Let's Talk About Vaccines event. Thank you for giving up your time to attend this event. My name is Prabha Shetty. I will be co-chairing this event with Councillor Thai Allen, who is the BAME lead for Kingston Council. I have a passion, though some people think an addiction, to voluntary work, as I've spent several decades supporting many local charities. I'm a trustee, board member and chair of the Krdc project board. I'm also chair of MILAP, which is a day center for older people. I'm chair of the Kingston Carnival Committee and a member of several other voluntary organizations like Global Arts Kingston, Voices of Hope. I'm an independent custody visitor. I'm on the independent advisory group for the Met Police, Safer Neighborhood Board. I better stop there. What I will do is give a brief overview of why we're doing this event, COVID-19 event, how KREC and RBK are linked, what we're going to discuss, and why these issues are relevant to everyone in Kingston. I'll start off with why we're doing this special COVID-19 event. During the last year, a pandemic has caused the death of a lot of people, obviously throughout the world, but a disproportionate larger number of deaths has been among Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. This has obviously raised a lot of concern. We are all aware that much work has been done to develop vaccines at tremendous speed to help stop the spread of COVID-19 virus. Whilst the take-up of vaccination across the country has been very positive, there remains a worrying number of people in our communities who are hesitant to take the vaccine, obviously for their own reasons. So we are dedicating this special COVID-19 event under the banner of Black Lives Matter. But this time, we want to talk about vaccines. RBK felt a strong need to take action to support BAME communities, and after discussion between KREC and RBK, we decided there was a need to have an open discussion to help people make up their minds if they have continuing doubt. How KREC and RBK are linked. We have a long history of working and collaborating. The most successful of all our collaboration and partnership working is Kingston Carnival, which celebrates the diversity, culture, and inclusivity which we share and promote what is good about this royal borough. RBK supports KREC in so many ways, but strategically, KREC is the only Race and Equalities Council in South London and is one of very few in the UK. In the past, every local authority had an REC, but funding cuts from government meant a lot of them closed. What we're going to discuss. This is the fifth in a series of race equality, Black Lives Matter events that we have had since September 2020. We identified a number of areas that we have so far discussed with residents. Tonight, with help from our partners, under the topic, Let's Talk About Vaccines, we've decided to have a panel discussion on COVID-19 vaccine uptake within the BAME communities. Why these issues are relevant to everyone in Kingston. we feel these issues are relevant and important because we do not know, for example, the real reasons which exist in Kingston preventing people from taking the vaccine. How many BAME staff in RBK, Kingston Police, Kingston Hospital, Kingston University, etc., are not willing to take the vaccine? So I am now going to let Councillor Thailand, and from now on, if it's okay, I'll just refer to you as Thai because if that is all right.
Okay,
so,
that's fine.
Thai, please introduce yourself.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabha. Good evening, all. My name is Thai Thailand, and I'm a councillor for Tolworth and Hook Rise Ward. I have been involved in many community organizations promoting equality, diversity, culture, and arts for nearly 35 years. I'm one of the founding members of Kingston Race and Equality Council, Global Arts Kingston, Kingston Carnival, and IPC Tamil Center. I also served as chair of these organizations for a few years. I have served as trustee of many other community organizations. I'm also a member of Independent Advisory Group for the Met Police. I chose Kingston Race and Equality Council as one of my charities during my mayoral year in 2018-2019 to raise the profile of equality and diversity. Thanks to Craig for inviting me as the BAME lead for the council to co-chair this meeting with Prabha Shetty. Now we have 4 excellent panelists this evening, and I would like to ask the panelists to introduce themselves. So I'll go with the order on my screen. Iona, would you like to go first, please?
Thank you, Councillor. Good evening, everyone. I'm Iona Livington. I'm Director of Public Health at Kingston Council. I'm also the Assistant Director for Healthy and Safe Communities. I've worked in Kingston for 15 years now. That's 7 years with the NHS and 8 years at the council.
Ali, would you like to go next?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Yeah, my name's Ali Kashmiri. I'm first and foremost a local resident, disabled person. I've been a campaigner for many years on disability and equality issues. I now work in local government as a principal planning specialist, but tonight I'm just representing myself and obviously the views of local disabled people. Thank you.
Thank you. Ruth, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Ruth Pombi. I'm a general manager for theatres at Kingston Hospital. I am a nurse by background. I did my nursing about more than 20 years ago now, and I have worked in a number of trusts across London. I've worked in various specialties as a nurse, and then before I specialized in theatres. So my specialty was theatre nursing. Over the past few years, I've moved into management, which is what I've done for the last 7 years at Kingston Hospital. So I am honored to be here today because I feel this is very, very important for our community. And I think it's crucial for our community to have the right information so that they're able to make informed decisions. So I am very, very honored, and I'm very pleased that this event has been made possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Naz Jivani.
Hi, I'm Naz Jivani. I'm a GP in New Malden, and I've been a GP there for 25 years. I'm also the co-chair of the Health and Wellbeing Board with the Councillor Davey. I'm the clinical lead for the Borough of Kingston, and also sit on the South West London CCG governing body.
Well, thank you to all for the brief introduction. We also invited Angelica Bell, a TV personality and a Kingston resident, to be one of the panelists. Unfortunately, she could not make it, but sent a video message instead. Can I ask Chris to play the video, please? Chris, is everything okay? It seems like we have some technical problems.
Chris?
Okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Angelica Bell and I'm a resident here in Kingston upon Thames, and I just love this community so much. Now COVID has had a devastating effect on all of us, and I'm sure you'll agree that the sooner we can get back to some form of normality, the better. Now, as a Black woman, I'm really concerned to hear the reports that people from our Black and Asian communities are less likely to be vaccinated. And that's a real worry given the health inequalities that exist. And it's for this reason that I urge everybody to listen carefully to our national health advisors and experts. When it's my turn, I'm going to be getting the vaccine to protect my family and also to protect you. I wish you peace. I wish you positivity and lots of love. Please do keep safe.
Thank you, Angelica, for that kind message. Now, I would like to give a brief outline of the background leading to these series of Let's Talk events organized by CREC in partnership with the Council. The tragic death of George Floyd last year and the Black Lives Matter campaign resulted in the governments and the local authorities addressing the issues raised by the campaign. Kingston Council worked with CREC and became the first and possibly the only local authority to fly a Black Lives Matter flag on top of the Guildhall. Kingston Council went further by taking a Black Lives Matter motion to the full council on 7th of July last year to confirm its commitment to address the issues around equality, diversity, and inclusion. Our thanks to the council leader, Councillor Caroline Kerr, for taking the initiative. The motion proposed 7 items to address inequality issues facing BAME communities. One of the proposals in the motion is to work in partnership with CREC to facilitate discussion and debates about inequalities. As Prabha mentioned earlier, CREC in partnership with RBK have been organizing monthly events since September last year. The previous events covered issues around health, crime, employment, education, disability, gender, younger and older people. As Prabha said, the topic this evening is about COVID vaccine. The reason for choosing it is for the growing concern of uptake in BAME residents and communities. We have received many questions from the public. We will try and get through as many questions as possible, time permitting. We have combined some of the questions which are related so that the panelists can answer them together. There are 6 main questions and a few supplementary questions. The first one is a lengthy question and is in 2 parts. We will take both parts together. I'll read out part A first. What are the government, particularly the vaccines minister and the local council, doing to engage with church leaders of different denominations? The reason I'm asking this question is that I know from some of the people I'm in contact with have said their vaccine hesitancy comes from their faith that God will protect them. The part B of the question is, what part has the places of worship, mosques, churches, temples, gurudwaras played in promoting vaccination? As the question is about the council's engagement, I'd like to ask Iona to go first. Iona.
Thank you, and it's a really fantastic question, because I think working with all parts of our community is so important, as it has been throughout of the whole of the COVID response. So in the early days, looking at prevention and testing, and now absolutely around disseminating advice and information around the vaccination programme. So we're working closely with our faith and community leaders to get the information out there in different types of ways. So we've been videoing local people, including from our Black, Asian and minority ethnic groups. We've been using social media as well, and particularly wanting to hear from them, and that's why tonight's so important, about their particular concerns and answer their questions. We've got some information on our council website, so if you go onto the council website and type in COVID-19 community, it will take you to some of that information and guidance. We've been working with the Interfaith Forum, which is very strong. It's a strong network in Kingston, and sharing information with them and asking them to forward it on and work with their local networks. And I'm pleased to say we've got a network of community champions from different faith communities who are connected to their places of worship across the borough. And those champions are engaging with their churches and with the mosque. We've got our Korean groups, because we know that Kingston's got a large Korean community, and they have their own Korean churches that local people go to. So again, we're looking at as much of our information about the borough that we've got and trying to use those local networks. Another strong one is Churches Together in South London, who've got a big network, and we have a weekly keeping up with the data sessions where we ask for advice and feedback on the messages that we're putting out as a council, to see how people are finding those, whether there's particular areas that they want to know more about, and using that network very strongly. We're working with Kingston Race Equality Council to engage our Black churches, and using the London Borough Faith Network as well. So, you know, there's, I guess you can never say we're doing enough. We always need to be doing more, and using those networks as much as possible to get those messages out to those communities across the whole of the borough.
Well, thank you, Anna. The council is doing a tremendous amount to engage with the faith groups. That's good to hear. Does any of the panelists want to add anything further?
I think Naz would like to say something.
Naz, would you like to, please?
Yes, thanks. There are a variety of Southwest London opportunities as well to engage with different communities on a much larger scale. So I've been involved in the Southwest London Muslim community, and we held a very large meeting with the mosque representatives plus the Muslim community to talk through the COVID vaccine and the uptake, and also myth busting. So actually telling the facts as they are and the evidence as they are, so that they're able to make an informed choice, an informed decision. Thank you. Thank you, Faye.
Yeah, thank you. Ruth, would you like to say something? You're muted.
No, I don't think I've got anything else to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ali? Okay.
Nothing to add. Nothing to add, thanks.
Thank you. I know of two Hindu temples which are proactively promoting the uptake of vaccine. They are in Wimbledon and Stoneleigh, which serve the Kingston Hindu community. The priests and doctors from the communities have been sending messages in social media, encouraging the community to take the vaccine. And I heard that the temple in Stoneleigh will be used as a vaccination center from next week as well. Over to you, Prabha.
Yeah, thanks very much. That's good to hear. The second question is also in two parts, or it's in three parts actually, but still related to the same topic. What is the take-up of the vaccine among the BAME community in RBK as a percentage of those offered? So that's the first part. The second part is, does RBK and Kingston Hospital know what percentage of BAME staff have taken up the offer of the vaccine? And the third part is, does the panel understand the anxiety of employers if employees refuse vaccination? Now that third one is a bit of a dilemma for me as a volunteer, so it would be really useful. Can I go to Iona first, please?
Thank you, Prabha. So we have data on uptake of vaccine, but we don't have it by those that are offered. The best we can do is look at what our population numbers look like and try and do a best guess, because it wasn't collected right from the get-go. The priority was to get the vaccine out there. We weren't asking lots of people to put in lots of information when they were first booking their vaccine. So we can do a kind of best guess, if you like, based on population estimates of people from different ethnic backgrounds, and it's a Southwest London level, so across the 6 boroughs of Southwest London. And the data, the most recent data, shows that people from Black and minority ethnic groups, about 25% of those have had the vaccine now, and for white ethnicity it's 29%, so it's slightly higher. The caveat being that at the moment the vaccine is being rolled out to priority groups, and they won't be the same across all of those different ethnicities. So what we can't say is who would have been eligible, who's been offered it, and who's taken it up. All we've got is that sort of broad brush numbers. So it's about a 4% difference, but that difference may be based on age, because we know at the moment, whilst we know people from Black and minority ethnic groups are more likely to suffer the most adverse effects of COVID, it's still very much age related. So age is still the strongest predictor of the most serious illness and the most likelihood of death, sadly. So that's why when we look at those groups that are being offered the vaccination earliest, it's been done by age and then risk groups as well. So people that are clinically extremely vulnerable, people that are medically vulnerable, and as it comes through the cohort. So across this first 3 months of offering the vaccine, you know, think when they had the very first ones in December, it's been not offered in equal proportions across Southwest London or by ethnicity. So it gives us an indication. There's not a huge gap between them, but as I say, sort of interpreting it more specific than that, it is much harder. What we do want people to be is ready when they get their offer, when they are in that group, that they are ready to take that offer up. And that's why evenings like tonight, where we're offering advice and information, answering questions, is so helpful, so that people can be ready when it's their turn.
Lovely. Ruth, as we mentioned, Kingston Hospital, can you enlighten us a bit?
Well, so I think, as Iona said, I think priority was to vaccinate as many people as we could. And you know, Kingston was one of the very first places that was offering the vaccine. But what we didn't do, exactly as Iona said, we're not very specific in terms of collecting all the data about the people that received the vaccine at that time. So this is something that we're working through. So we don't have the numbers. And I think the most important thing is to find out from those that have been offered, because we know that some people, for lots of reasons, haven't been able to be offered for, you know, either it's age or they were away when the vaccine was being delivered. And there are all sorts of things that could have meant that they haven't had the vaccine, not because they're hesitant. So that's what we need to try and work out. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Would you like to give us some more information?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to give some rough information on a Southwest London basis, if that's okay. When we were looking at residents being vaccinated, white residents were more than 2 times more likely than black residents to take up the vaccine. And also looking at the health inequalities, the more affluent areas were more than 1.5 times more likely to take it up than the deprived areas, and white residents were 1.1 times more likely than Asian residents to take up the vaccine. So there is an awful lot of work that we do need to do to make sure that residents are informed fully about the vaccination, and to lead by example, I think, when we start taking the vaccines ourselves as well.
Ali, would you like to make a contribution to this topic or this question?
Yeah, probably my question really is back to Naz. I mean, in terms of what has been done to, in terms of information for those hard to reach people, i.e. people whose first language is not English, people perhaps who might get swayed by social media, and people that can't differentiate between, what is fact and what is fiction. I mean, there's lots of YouTube videos out there. Lots of those videos are very inaccurate, but they're well made, they look professional, but actually they're full of baloney. So what are we doing to counter that?
So what we've done at South West London level, so Iona might be able to help out with what we're doing specifically at Kingston, but at South West London level, we've created what we call an FAQs, which is a frequently asked questions around the COVID vaccines, and we're putting it in different languages to be able to send out to different communities. So it sort of tries to help explain what the concerns are that we've heard, and try to come up with answers or reasonable discussion about what the evidence shows. So Iona, I don't know whether you've got anything specific for Kingston itself.
Yes, I think being very mindful that not sort of using the same communication style is going to work for everybody. We've been doing a lot of work with those small faith and community groups, voluntary groups, and we've actually been funding them with small amounts of money to help them go out, either produce materials in their own language, making it easy to access. So for people that are partially sighted or blind, how we make sure they're able to access the information. And again, using different medias in different languages. So we've translated materials into our main community languages, so Korean, Tamil, for example. So we are trying to work with local organisations because they often will know their community best. They'll know how to do that sort of in-reach there. And in terms of counteracting the more social media messages, it's by trying to get the facts out there as well, but by trusted voices. So it was really nice to have that introductory little clip there, but also using our own community champions. So I know Prabha's been involved, for example, in getting messages out. So those trusted sources. So it's not just an anonymous link that they've clicked on through a social media channel. It's using our local trusted champions who they will hopefully outweigh the sort of social media that they're getting from anonymous people that, as you say, are putting misinformation out there. And we know that sort of classic areas of concern about whether the vaccines are made with animal origin, and so being absolutely factual to say no, there's no animal origin in the vaccine. Has it been tested on lots of different people from different ethnicities? Yes, it has. So it's countering it with the facts, but with people that are local trusted voices. So we're doing that all the time because we know that we want to get the correct information out there in a way that people find useful to them. And again, doing that question and answer. So if people have got questions, that we're prepared to hear them and we want to answer them in a way that's honest and transparent.
Thank you. I think, Ruth, you wanted to add a bit more?
Yes, I think one thing that we're doing at Kingston Hospital, obviously, is for the hospital, is having champions within the organization that people can go to if they've got any questions. Because even though they work in a hospital, we have got quite a number of people that are still hesitant, and for them to know they can confidentially go and sit with someone and ask their questions openly, that will help them make a decision about whether to have it or not.
That's good. I was going to say, as Iona mentioned, I can't say I was a guinea pig, but a lot of the older people were quite reluctant initially. And I kind of gave the example of the Queen having her vaccine, and my member said, so what? But when I had mine, being a lady who's mature, I was offered my vaccine. And although I wasn't quite sure to start with, I listened to the Queen, and I also said, well, if it is not just for me, it is for other people as well. And I think my members then felt, well, if as they could trust me to, if I could take it, they could take it. So yes, it does help for people, known people, to be trusted, and I know Thai has done the same. So yeah, it's really useful. Can I just ask about the last bit of it? Does the panel understand the anxiety of employers if employees refuse vaccination. I think, as far as I know, we are not allowed, it's not compulsory. We are not allowed to force people to have it. But as employers, I guess is it a question of encouraging people to understand, or even sitting and chatting, as Ruth, you said, is to say why exactly you don't want to have it, so that either they can be educated or, you know, find reasons and persuade them to. Is that how it is, Ruth?
I noticed that Naz has got his hand up, but one of the things that I can say quickly is that from my nursing background, I know that there is a question that you know, the professional bodies are asking themselves currently in terms of how to manage any such issues going forward. But I think Naz has got a response to that.
Okay, please go ahead, Naz.
Thanks, Prabha. So I do know it has been an issue, particularly around care homes and care home staff, but the vaccine is not mandatory. It has to be taken with informed consent. And I think that the issue around employers being concerned, they're rightly to be concerned, because it's not, the vaccine just doesn't protect the person, it protects the people around them as well. So things like care home staff being vaccinated actually protects the care home residents. And that's just one example, but it is not mandatory and it needs to be given via informed consent.
Thank you. Ty, would you like, oh, sorry, Iona, you wanted.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that. So again, we're recognising that people, perhaps for the first time they're offered it, they're not sure whether to say yes. So we are going back second, third time, that it's never too late. We don't want to leave anyone behind. It's not, if you've had 3 offers, that's it. And so wherever possible, potentially, when we're going back into care homes, if they didn't have it the first time, we're offering it a second time. And as gradually people that had the first dose, they're coming back for the second dose, maybe other carers that were with them, again, when we're going to see our residents in care homes and offering it to the residents for their second dose, again, most staff might take it up then. So again, what we're finding is that people that perhaps weren't saying yes straight away are gradually seeing actually more and more people. 20 million people have had the vaccination now, so we are seeing more people saying yes, so that's really encouraging too.
Good, lovely, yes. Ali?
Probably just one final, I suppose, question. I'm just wondering, you know, why do we think there is a hesitancy amongst BAME groups specifically not to have the vaccine? Where is that coming from, aside from social media? I mean, why is it such an issue?
I mean, from my own not expert understanding from talking to communities, is a bit of, I don't know if ignorance is a nice word to say, is lack of understanding. You know, people had said about, and I think we've got some questions later on about, is there, you know, alcohol in it? A lot of my members were saying, oh, there is, you know, stem cells used. I think it is genuine lack of understanding. But I don't know if anyone else thinks it's, that, you know, and social media you mentioned, so I don't think it is anything that is any more specific than that. It is lack of understanding, and now of course more people are making the effort, not that they didn't before, but you know, to explain it better, so that and there is a lot of evidence. You know, you can, people are looking at wrong WhatsApp messages, and then so you direct them to the right place, you know, fact-finding place, rather than, is that how the rest of you feel, or any other reason you think?
I think there was lots of news earlier on in the pandemic that was suggesting that there was a higher proportion of BAME people dying from COVID. You see, I'm not so sure that that was entirely accurate. And the reason I say that is because you've only got to walk into a hospital there was PPE was quite scarce. There wasn't enough PPE. And if we go into a hospital, the reality is that there are lots more BAME workers than there are sort of white people. So I think it's fair to say that they were the higher proportion working in those places, and therefore the death rate was going to be higher. So,
Yes, true.
And I think a lot of that fear has stemmed from that earlier sort of response.
Iona, did you want to add something?
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting point. I think we've seen this disproportionality. How much might it be ethnicity-based or deprivation-based? Those frontline roles, which, as you say, Ali, are often, you have different ethnic representation in some of those frontline roles. So how we tease out those two things, I think, is quite tricky. What we know is that people that were, in the front line, if you like, seeing lots of people, and it goes for other jobs as well. We know that sort of security guards, taxi drivers, again, those that saw a lot of people, because it's a virus that's transmitted through sort of social contact, seeing lots of people, any roles that are in those front line were more likely to get the infection. And again, whether it's underlying sort of either people with more medical conditions that were more likely therefore to get more seriously ill, and sadly a proportion of them die. So I think it's quite hard, and it will be interesting to look as we are able to go back to some of this data to see what the different risk factors are. So ethnicity is still clearly of interest, but as is deprivation and inequalities. And I think in our sort of post-COVID world, as we recover from the pandemic, again, trying to minimize those inequalities across the board will be really, really important, because we can absolutely see it hasn't affected everybody the same. But whether it's ethnicity or deprivation, those lower paid roles that put people at more risk, for example, people in homes that were more crowded, more people, 3 generations living in the same household, again, had different risks. So I think it's quite hard to say it's only down to one thing. And therefore, again, I think we have to be mindful in all of our messages around prevention that we're using messages sensibly with the populations that we're talking to, because it's not the same message for everybody.
That's great. I think we have to move on because we are only on question 3. And Ty, would you like to ask the question?
Yeah, sorry. Just to pick up on what Prabha said earlier, on misinformation, I have come across lots of WhatsApp messages and social media messages about the side effects and, as you say, the animal origin and things like that. People tend to believe it. So I think that's important. Why, as community leaders, we did a video. I took a video of me taking the vaccination about a month ago and posted in social media, and I did one with the community leaders as well. So that's all I think helped. Let me move to the next question. It's about disabled people. It's been stated that disabled people made up of 6 out of 10 deaths involving COVID in England. Is this true? And if so, why? Ali, as a disabled champion, would you like to go first?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. I mean, I can't speak on the statistics, and I can't say whether that's true or not. But what I would say is that as a disabled person, I found that when the pandemic struck, a lot of the services that I was relying on, those services closed down. They weren't available to me. It was my district nursing service that suddenly disappeared. It was the hygienist that I visit every 6 weeks that suddenly wasn't available anymore. Regular contact that I had. Now, I mean, I'm someone who is quite resilient. I work full time. I don't rely on people to look after me. I rely on support. And that difference is quite subtle, but it's crucial for when you compare me with someone who actually needs to be looked after. So I think if we're questioning why disabled people have suffered perhaps disproportionately, that's because, not necessarily because of COVID directly, but it's that knock-on effect of COVID and the fact that some people were left, quite frankly, in the lurch. So I'm going to stop there and let others come in.
Thank you, Ali. Can I ask Iona to answer it next? I know you do a weekly presentation on data London-wide, and I'm sure you'll probably be able to answer this question.
Yes, again, I think that disproportionality, what is it, what aspects of disability which can cover a broad range of terms, again, that 6 out of 10 statistic, which I've also seen, but I think what's important is that we get a bit underneath that. And I think, as Ali said, a proportion will be directly potentially from COVID, because if they caught it, it may mean that they were less able to fight it, or again, in our first wave, we had fewer treatments available. We've got more treatments available. I think, we'd never experienced a pandemic before. When we think back to sort of March, April, May of last year, the tsunami wave that it was across all services, and as Ali said, many of the services that had to be directed to that very immediate response. I think as we've had more, as the second and third waves have come, more treatments available, known far more about prevention and what's going to be effective treatments, that I would hope that when we saw those second waves, when we do a deeper dive into the data, we won't see quite the same risk. We'll see more people recovering, fewer people having to go into hospital. But again, I think some of those other impacts of COVID, some of the treatments that had to be paused, as you say, some of those other services that were paused whilst the immediate response was in place, the sort of indirect consequence of COVID. We know also sort of for things like education as well, it's not just health that's going to be impacted, employment, many other things are going to have been impacted because of COVID, which also impact on health. So for me, again, it's learning from this. And when we look at sort of building back stronger, it's looking at reducing those inequalities, be it in employment, education, as well as health, and some of those catch-up services that we're going to need to put in place to make up some of the ground. And that's certainly been the case even during the second and third waves, very much getting that message that the NHS is open. It might be delivering services in a different way. I'm sure many people have experienced sort of online consultations, sending photographs of things. It's been very innovative in many respects, but clearly, again, depending on people's access to the internet, their preference for one-to-ones, we've got used to having sort of 2D consultations, but the NHS putting lots in place, as many services are, to work in new ways and trying to close that gap that resulted from that first wave response.
Well, thank you. Naz, would you like to add anything to it?
Just really quickly, I think that that data, the 6 out of 10 dying from COVID, came from the census data. And actually, when it described it as asking people if their daily activities were limited a little or a lot by their health problems or disability, which lasts more than 12 months. And that's the definition that they used in the census data for that 6 out of 10. The actual mortality rates are higher in disability, in patients with a disability. I think it's around about 2.4% in women, and twice as the mortality rate is twice as high in men with disabilities than the normal population. So the non-disabled population, sorry. So I think that it was just taken out of a little bit of context because it was using census data.
Mm-hmm. Ruth, would you like to make any comments?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Over to you, Prabha.
Thanks. I think I saw Ali's hand up. Is it a quick one? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, probably just to say that I think that we've got to look at the fundamental need of disabled people. I mean, for example, I found myself in Kingston Hospital right in the middle of the pandemic, and it was a battle to keep the support with me, because obviously it was patient only, with no visitors, and it was very difficult to get hospital staff to recognise that actually the person with me was my lifeline. And without that person, I would probably perish. So I think there are much wider issues that actually got forgotten about during the pandemic. Had that been an ordinary day, there wouldn't have been any issue with me taking somebody into hospital with me. But because it was pandemic time, it was suddenly all the normal rules went out the window. So that's just to say that.
I guess it was also, the worry that, the greater good kind of thing. But anyway, we'll come back to it if anybody else has got something to say. Let's try and do a few more questions, because the public have gone out of the way to ask, and let's try and do those and then come back to anything that has not been, completed. So my next question, which comes from somebody in the community, is what is Kingston's plan to ensure second vaccines are guaranteed within 12 weeks? So this person says, I had my first vaccine, but was not given a date for my second. But my neighbor, who uses the same GP surgery, was. Why would this happen? Naz, can I come to you first, seeing as it is something to do with the surgery, and the others can chip in later?
So I can't comment on that specific scenario, but all patients and the whole population will be contacted for their second dose. Now there is some variation about how they're sometimes contacted, whether they're given an appointment then and there. And I think earlier, when the vaccines were being given on the first doses, the second appointment was being given and then cancelled and had to be redone for 10 to 12 weeks later because of the government changes. But no one, as Iona said before, no one is going to get left behind. We've got the lists for the second vaccine doses, and you will receive your second vaccine dose before 12 weeks. We've got specific supplies for first vaccine doses and specific supplies for second vaccine doses. And we are starting to call those people in for their second doses. I think about 25% of over 80-year-olds have already received their second dose. So we are ploughing through it at the moment.
Brilliant. Does anyone else have anything else to add? I guess from my own perspective, I thought it's probably where you go for your vaccine, because I was offered a second date for mine when I had my first one. But some people I know, my neighbors, haven't. So I guess and like you say, I mean, I've been trying to convince everyone, you will definitely get your second dose. Though some of my elders are saying, well, the flu vaccine, you only have one, so why do we need to have two? But that is another conversation that we can hopefully have another time. So as no one else has got their hands up, Ty, do you want to move on to the next question?
Yeah, I also, when I had my vaccine, I wasn't given a second date yet. When I asked, they said it will be within 12 weeks, but I have not heard from them yet. Okay, the next question is in two parts as well. For those who are trying to get pregnant or planning to in the near future, is it known if the vaccine can impact fertility? Can we be sure that it doesn't affect your DNA or fertility, and there is no tracing element? Part B of the question, a much higher proportion of BAME women die during childbirth. So is it safe for pregnant women to be vaccinated? Naz, would you like to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first if that's okay. I think what we've had to do, like sort of on the first point around around residents who are pregnant, who are planning to get pregnant or planning in the near future, whether it would impact fertility. There is no evidence it will impact fertility. We are being given the advice by the Joint Committee of Vaccinations and Immunisations, who look at the data, look at the research, and then advise the health professionals what groups, who can take it, who can't take it, and what the potential side effects are. And the Joint Committee of Vaccinations and Immunisations has stated that if you're going to be trying for a baby, it does not, it's not a contraindication against the vaccine. As regards affecting DNA, there is no evidence. It cannot affect DNA the way that the vaccine is actually produced. I know that there's an awful lot of myth out there, but it does not change your DNA. And there is no tracing element. So there's no Microsoft chip, there's no microchips in it. And if people wanted to know where you were, they could quite easily look at Facebook and know exactly where you are any point of the time. As regards the being vaccinated during pregnancy, it is safe. It is a discussion to be had between the clinician and the resident who is pregnant as to the pros and cons as to whether to take it. I got asked today, I've got a resident who is pregnant, who's got diabetes, who should be asking the question whether she should be vaccinated. And I actually said, in that case, I think the risks of not having the vaccine and catching COVID far outweigh the risks of actually giving the vaccine itself. So the recommendation in that case would be that pregnant lady should be given the vaccine.
Thank you. Does any other panelists would you like to contribute? Ruth.
Sorry, I think this is a very sad statistic to do with BME women dying during childbirth. It's very sad to read that. But I think one of the things is, as Nas said, there's no evidence at all that the COVID-19 vaccine will contribute to that. There are a lot of other reasons that could lead to people dying because of childbirth. So I think again, it goes back to the information and education that we need to have as BME people to be able to know how we can make the right decisions. But those two things should not be related. There's no evidence to say that they should. And I think the fact that we know now that the vaccine is safe for pregnant women, then it should not be contributing to any death during childbirth.
Oh, thank you. It will clear. Yeah, Nas, would you like to? Yeah, please.
Just one last thing is that the flu vaccine, right at the beginning, because they weren't sure about the data, was not offered to pregnant women. But actually, the flu vaccine is now recommended for all pregnant women. Okay, whether they've got comorbidities or not. So in the same way, the COVID vaccine it's better to have the COVID vaccine than to not. It is not a nice disease to have while you are pregnant.
Well, thank you. I'm sure that this will clear doubt from some of the people. Anyway, thank you very much, Prabha.
Yes, I need to say that we did ask members of the public if they wanted to come live to ask the questions, but I think nobody's actually come forward, which is the reason why we are asking all the questions. Now, this one is a lengthy question, but I'll read it the way they've asked it, and I hope I'm sure some of you will have the answers. So it says, how would you explain to a vaccine skeptic, as per the government.uk website, dedicated coronavirus yellow card reporting scheme set up by the MHRA for adverse reactions to the vaccine?
Prabha, you're on mute if you want to just continue, sorry.
Yes, I went reading the question. Thanks. I will never get used to this. I did start to say that it's a it's a complex question, this one. We did ask the sender of some of these questions to come live to ask it themselves, but they said they didn't, or they didn't come forward. So this one is a long one, and like I said, I'm going to be hesitating asking it because it's a, but I will, and I'm sure the experts will have the answer. So it says, how would you explain to a vaccine skeptic, as per the government.uk website, dedicated coronavirus yellow card reporting scheme set up by the MHRA for adverse reactions to the vaccine, which unequivocally states that between the 9th of December and the 20th of July, from the 9th of December to the 7th of February reporting period, there have been 323 deaths and 144,197 adverse reactions in the UK directly attributed to the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine since the rollout started. Now, I guess you're all wanting to speak, but can I go to Naz first, please?
Sure. Thank you, Prabha. So the MHRA actually stands for Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency. They regulate all medicines and products that come onto the market, and they make sure that they review all the evidence from the trials and make sure that they are safe to actually release to the health and care professionals to be able to start prescribing and to be able to give. Now, the MHRA utilize a yellow card scheme, and they've been doing this for many, many years for thousands and thousands of different medical products. And that is how they get their data going through. They don't just rely on the data from the trials, but they still get the data as those medicines are still used, and they collect the adverse reactions. So when you open your box of tablets and you see that whole list of different side effects, that's where they get the data from. It doesn't mean to say that those side effects are common, but they have to report every single one that happens. Now, with the MHRA yellow card scheme, deaths are really taken seriously. And I think the MHRA has received 212 UK reports of suspected adverse drug reactions related to the Pfizer, in which the patient has died shortly after the vaccine, and 244 reports of the AstraZeneca one. And I think there were 4 reports of an unbranded vaccine. Now, what they do with this, they look into detail and they look at patterns and they look at population. And when they did review the individual reports and the patterns of reporting, none of it suggested that the vaccine played a role in the death. Now, there are going to be a lot of people who do die at a particular point in time. Sometimes they're vaccinated a week or 2 weeks before, but it's got nothing to do with the vaccine. They were going to die, unfortunately, at that time, whether or not they got the vaccine. So the MHRA investigate those elements. And at this present point in time, there is no suggestion the vaccine plays a role in the death.
Thanks, Naz. I don't see any hands up. Does anyone else want to add to it? Ali?
So, Naz, this is sort of more directed at you, really. I mean, I'm someone who generally doesn't have vaccines done, but I took the view that the benefits of having the Pfizer vaccine far outweighed my risk of getting COVID. I mean, just to stress the point, I haven't had the flu jab for 15 years. I just take the risk that if I get the flu, hey ho, if I have the vaccine, I may get the flu or symptoms of the flu that make me unwell. And that's my rationale. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I had the Pfizer vaccine. I've got a severe physical neurological condition, and I was fine. So I take the view that it's far better to have it than not to have it.
Good, my thoughts exactly. And I think a lot of people would agree with us, because it's not just us keeping ourselves safe, but like I said, we have to think about other people as well. So that's great. Naz?
Yeah, sorry, just one other thing I was going to state was that on the data, I think you can look at around about 290 to 650,000 deaths worldwide from the flu. So far, COVID has created more than 2.5 million deaths. I had COVID back in end of March, beginning of April last year, and it is nothing like I've ever had before. I've only had 2 days off in my life, sick, and I was knocked out for 2 weeks, and it took me 3 months to recover. So it's not just the flu. This is a serious illness.
Yeah, yes, I think people haven't quite realized that till they've got someone they know who's, been down with it. But we've got to move on, unfortunately. Ty, do you want to ask the next question?
Yeah, now we are moving on to the supplementary questions. The next question is about side effects, and I think you already touched on some of the points on your previous answers, but let me read out the question. How can you say the vaccine is safe when so many people suffer COVID-like side effects after having the vaccine? Is it worth the risk? Are people from a BME background more at risk from these side effects? Are the side effects worse after the second dose? Who would like to go first? Hello? Oh, Naz?
Yeah, sorry, I seem to be hogging it. I'm really sorry. For someone who's actually given the vaccine and received the vaccine, as regards the side effects, the side effects are very minimal. They're very short-lasting, and the majority of the side effects are a sore arm, a headache, sometimes a bit of a fever, or even a bit of fatigue. But they're very short-lasting. It doesn't give you COVID. The vaccine cannot give you COVID. It is just impossible for it to give you COVID, the way that it's been developed. So even though it feels like a COVID type side effect, I didn't get that. I just got the sore arm and the headache. They are very short-lived. Within about 24, 48 hours, normally things slowly start to settle down. As regards whether people from a BAME background are more at risk from those side effects, there is no evidence for that. I think the side effects are very individual. I don't think they're ethnicity based. My father just had a sore arm on his vaccine, and I had a sore arm and a headache on mine. So I don't think it is. It can be based on ethnicity. As regards other side effects worse after the second dose, I think it also depends whether you've had COVID as well. So if you've had COVID and you take your first dose vaccine, the side effect is likely to be a little bit stronger because it's a reactivation of the antibody response. If you're taking the second dose, you've had COVID, you've taken your first dose, and now you're taking your second dose, the likelihood is the side effects are not going to be that strong at all from that third exposure. So as regards the second dose side effect, I think you may get a stronger second dose side effect if you've not had COVID in the past.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to add anything? Iona?
I think Naz sharing his experience of having COVID just shows you, the risks of not having the vaccine and going through the illness. And as we know, sadly, more than 124,000 people have died in the UK, and we've heard the figures globally. So a huge impact. And just the other thing to say, when the vaccines went through the testing process, where so many colleagues worked so hard, so quickly to get a vaccine prepared, and it's so fantastic that we've got the range of vaccines that we have available. It's just to confirm that they were tested on a range of people from different ethnic backgrounds. It wasn't only tested on people of Caucasian background. So just to reassure people that people from different Black, Asian, minority ethnic groups were part of those testing populations to get through the safety test. So just to reassure people.
I think Ruth wants to say something.
Yes, no, I just wanted to say, when I had my vaccine, I had a swam. It was quite sore and a headache, but it just lasts 36 to 48 hours and I was fine. And I just wanted to say, working in the hospital, when I talk to people of different ethnic groups, they seem to have the same kind of side effects. I'm not hearing Black and ethnic minority people saying they've got side effects more than the white people. So I think, the evidence is right there that it's not worse on a particular ethnic group than the other. So, and again, I think if you think about it, really, it's just short-term side effects. You cannot compare that to having COVID or even dying from it. So you cannot really compare the two.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to say I had quite a bit of side effects, but being the positive thinker, I'm saying that's probably good because my body is presumably reacting in a positive way to it. So that's what I say. Sorry.
Yeah, but when I had my vaccine, I didn't have any side effects at all, not even a sore arm. Maybe I was lucky. I mean, I don't get any illness even when I had flu jab. So, does anyone else want to come and contribute to this question?
I think we'll move on, Ty. Okay. That's all right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So the next question is, how can we be confident that both vaccines are equally safe for BAME residents? What are the differences between vaccines? Which one should BAME residents be asking for, and can they choose? Iona, can I go to you? Is there a choice? That's the main thing, I think.
No, there won't be a choice. It will depend which site you go to. We know that both vaccines are currently being used, and we've got more in the pipeline, have all been through the same rigorous testing. So again, it will depend on the supply that comes through to the location that you're being vaccinated. So whether it's in a community site, through our primary care networks, through our GPs, whether it's through employers for different, our health and social care staff. So it's not that people get a choice, it's to reassure people that both vaccines have been through the same testing process, again, using different people from different ethnicities to ensure that reactions are monitored the same. So yes, there's no personal choice, just to take it up when you get the opportunity. And again, if people are booking online, they can often choose where they're going to have it, but that's on a location, not a type of vaccine.
Great. Naz?
So I was just going to say the only real choice is made by the clinician, because for certain cohorts of population, a very, very small number of population, the Pfizer vaccine is not appropriate and the AstraZeneca one would need to be given, but that is on a clinical judgment to make sure that that's given.
Well, that's useful to know. Thank you. Ty, do you want to move on?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the next question, there is a history of BAME people being used unknowingly to test medical treatment. How can we trust that we are getting the right treatment? Anyone wants to go first? Naz, okay, and then Iona.
So I was going to say, coming back to what Iona said before, was that these vaccines were tested in proper trials, phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3 trials in a whole variety of different age groups and ethnicity backgrounds. So the testing was actually done at that stage, and it was a very it was conducted in a very scientific way. And it was based on those tests that the MHRA authorized it, and the JCVI, the Joint Committee of Vaccination and Immunizations, has then asked the health professionals to implement it. So it's been tested in a very thoroughly scientific way. That testing's finished. And this is actually the implementation phase now.
Mm-hmm. Iona?
I think the other thing to add to that is that we're doing more and more sort of insights work. So people asking the communities, asking people from different ethnic backgrounds about perceptions and views. And I know up in Newham, they've done a lot of work with their local community, as have other boroughs, with a higher proportion of their resident population from Black and Asian minority ethnic groups. And one of the things that really resonated with me was one comment that they put up on the slides when they were sharing their data was that a Black resident had said, Black people have never been the first in the queue for anything else before, and almost like, you know, being a bit more surprised that potentially being sort of put up the priority list and being a bit skeptical about that, which when you hear that, you think, actually, that's not that surprising that people are worried and thinking, why are they prioritizing us? And part of that is looking at the data from the first and second waves, where we do know people from Black and Asian minority ethnic groups were disproportionately admitted to hospital, higher numbers have died for, you know, as I say, maybe potentially a variety of reasons, not just their ethnicity, maybe exposure, maybe the jobs that they did, maybe multiple occupation at multiple age households. And therefore, it might say that therefore means they would benefit more from being vaccinated early. But that hesitancy, therefore, maybe let's just wait and see how many other people have it. And as we say, we've seen over 20 million people having the vaccine, are beginning to see people that perhaps didn't say yes the first time, now saying yes when they're offered it again, because they've got more confidence that there isn't anything that's, you know, to be concerned about, that they may be being offered it because of the roles they're in, etc. So using that behavioural insight, I think, is really important, you know, listening to people's concerns, looking at the data, and as I said, we're getting more and more data as more and more people are vaccinated, and really all of that's really helping us to say, actually, it's even more beneficial than we potentially thought it was. It's better in terms of protecting people from the serious illness, and also more and more evidence that it's better at stopping the transmission of the virus as well. So protecting the individual, but also protecting other people. So, and all of that's good news, but it's answering those questions that people have to help reassure them.
Oh, thank you, Anna. Ali has put some comments in the chat box. Ali, would you like to say something?
Councillor, just to say that, yeah, if you want to just read what I put, you might be able to do it faster than me.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, what Ali said in the chat box, I know some people do not feel that enough investigation has been done, plus they have had family members had deadly reactions to immunization, so they are skeptic. Also, history among Black community being used for experiments and historical atrocities have left people really uncertain. When COVID started, there were French politicians openly talking about the fact that they should go and try the medication in Africa to test its safety, as they tested HIV medications. So all these have left people in doubt. Does anyone want to comment on?
I guess what I hope that we've answered in terms of the question, both in terms of the research done in the phased trials, but also the research that's ongoing with the feedback from people, the yellow card process that we discussed early, that we're collecting that all the time. It's important as we get more data and information that we don't make assumptions, that we go with the facts and the evidence, and that's been collected all the time. So, you know, absolutely acknowledging those historical atrocities, Ali, not to discount those at all, and that therefore it isn't surprising when we do some of that insight work that we're going to be hearing that from populations. But I think it's therefore also important that we're honest about the facts as of today and in the UK, and speak to our communities and answer those questions and direct them to the evidence that's available, be it the research data, the published data. You know, if we think of things like around pregnancy, going to the Royal College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists to see their statements, because that's where people can triangulate the information they get with other facts and figures. But, you know, as I say, the more people that have the vaccination, the more research we get, the more information we've got that we can share with others too.
Thank you. Ruth, you got your hands up.
Yes, I do. So I listened to a Jamaican friend of mine, and he was just telling me about his parents in terms of how hesitant they are to take the vaccine, and it's things like the way they were treated. You know, they go back to the Windrush generation, and you know, and some of them feel nothing has changed since then. And I can see why people don't trust the authorities in terms of why, you know, they cannot do any harm to them, because it happened historically. Things were happening that most people know about. But one of the things that sort of give me some assurance as well is that, you know, among the scientists that were putting this vaccine together, we have quite a good proportion of you know, Black and ethnic minority scientists involved in that. And also, when you listen to the experts, we've got Black and ethnic minority, you know, experts talking about the vaccine and encouraging people to take the vaccine. So I think when I see that and what I know, I just think, yes, there's been some things that have happened, and we still cannot trust, because we humans, you sometimes are suspicious about what's going on. But if you look at what has been going on, especially with this vaccine, there's been quite a lot of transparency in terms of how it was being done and who was working on it. I feel that should give us, you know, some confidence in terms of when we make our decisions. Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, Iona. Sorry.
I think the other thing I wanted to come back about was around data, and we haven't routinely collected ethnicity data all the time, not even in the NHS, which is probably better at than many other parts of, say, the public sector or the system. And there's been a real change. It's really vital that we collect this data. The same around disabilities as well. It's the same around carers, that we know more about our population, because it helps us be more based on evidence. So there's a real push now that we collect ethnicity data, particularly in NHS, but other fora as well, because I think that will make for a richer response. And while I was thinking about sort of collecting data, it reminded me that a lot of our population data relies on the census, and we've got our next census happening on the 21st of March, so just in a couple of weeks' time. So a real plea for people to look out for that. It's a way where we get the richest source of data on population numbers, age breakdown, ethnicity, household numbers, which will really help for, you know, the next stages of COVID, because we'll have really up to date rather than projected figures. So 21st of March is National Census Day.
Okay, thank you. Ali, you would like to come back, and you got your hands up?
Okay. Yeah, so at some point I'd like to ask a question, and that's around equality and the lessons that have been learned around sort of, you know, the COVID pandemic and how that impacted on disabled people. I think that equality fundamentally is about treating people differently. If you don't recognise difference, then we're not really being ambassadors of equality. The fact is that disabled people are different. We do have different requirements, different needs. And it really isn't about wants. This is a matter of survival. And lots of those services were withdrawn. So I'd like to ask that question. What lessons have been learnt, and what is being done to ensure that should we ever encounter such a crisis again, that disabled people won't get forgotten?
Oh, thank you. Does anyone want to comment on that? Or okay, we just got about 10 minutes. So Prabha, would you like to go to the next question? Or, oh, sorry. Iona.
Sorry, I did want to come in, Ali, and I couldn't agree more. I think one thing that COVID has done across the board has shone a light on inequalities of all types. And I think there's a real drive, both at national level, London level for us as a region, and local level, about closing the gap in inequalities, and that's inequalities in all dimensions. So, you know, be it on race, be it on income, be it on disability, gender equality, all of those aspects. So I think the closing the gap in inequalities will be a real drive drive. We know some of the recent, so the new white paper around health and social care is really going to have an inequalities dimension. So for me, one of the things coming out of COVID will be shining that spotlight on inequalities and how we look to close those in the future. So I would hope when we're coming back together for forums and discussion, we're able to show the difference it's made and how we've closed those gaps. And as you say, it's not treating everyone the same, it's absolutely treating people differently to give them the same opportunity.
Thank you. Prabha.
Yes, I was going to say there are a few more questions, but I think we are going to run out of time. So I'll do a quick summary of what I think we've discussed today. And I think Iona wants a couple of minutes. I hope only a couple of minutes, because we haven't got a lot of time to spare at the end. So before I do my thank yous, and this time I'm not going to forget anyone, I hope. I just wanted to say that Naz has already told us about how the vaccine has been tried and tested. From his own experience, we know that people need to have the vaccine when they are offered. So it can be a lot worse than people assume. There's a lot of Iona and Naz have said that a lot, they're collecting critical data to know how many people have died and how many of them are from BAME communities. So there's quite a lot of learning. The same goes about disabled people. I think they've all suggested, that obviously there was a rush to give people the vaccine, in the sense that I think one of the questions was, how did they manage to do it so quickly, how it was developed so quickly? But I know I've heard enough on TV about why it was that, everybody worked together, and, the finance, the pharmaceuticals, everybody joined forces and did it. So that was, I think, the reason. I mean, I would have asked the experts for a better explanation if we had the time. But like I said, time is limited. So I will leave it at that for summarizing. What I did like to hear Iona saying was that there was only, I think, 4% difference between the host community and the BAME communities, taking up the vaccine. So that was quite encouraging. I think that's as much as I can remember, I'm afraid. So I am going to, I'm going to do my thank yous, I hope. Unless, I'll give Councillor Thailand the opportunity to add what I have forgotten. I think to add to what I've said, obviously, Ruth has assured us that, pregnant women are not at risk. And if people, the mortality rate isn't connected to them being from BAME communities. At least that was my understanding of it. And yeah, just to acknowledge that Ali, obviously, as a campaigner and a advocate, that he acknowledged there is a shortage of services for disabled people. And I guess over time, I hope some of our voices will be heard and better things will happen. Keep our fingers crossed. I think what I need to say is this is the start of the discussion. So I hope there will be opportunities for people to ask more questions, because we, within the 1.5 hours, there's only so much we can cover. So this won't be the end of it, I hope. But people can share their views, opinions through RBK and Krdc social media. And we are hoping, though it may not be connected to the vaccine or COVID, but we are planning on another event, a BLM event with the partnership, of course, partnership work with the RBK. We're hoping sometime in April or May, because of the elections and whatever. I think we cannot do, or it isn't going to happen in April and May because of the elections. but we hope sometimes later. So that I think RBK puts out a newsletter on the website quite regularly. So I hope people are going to look to see what is going on in Kingston. Before I run out of time, I need to say a big thank you, obviously, to the panelists, Iona, Ali, Ruth, and Naz. Of course, Angelica for her video, which was quite lovely. The RBK staff who've been working behind the screen, as it were, Christine, Kate Leyland, and George, who is the technician, who obviously is a very clever man. And of course to Thai for co-chairing it with me and keeping my sanity, I think. Thai, would you like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Jonas, Javid, the chair of CRAC, and CRAC for all the work they have done in organizing this event. And I'm sure if there is enough responses, we may probably have another one in a couple of months' time. But I think because of the election on the 7th of May and the regulation, the PERDA period, we may not be able to have one in April, May, but may have to be later. Yes, I think the panelists managed to convince most of the people, I hope. As I said, I had my vaccine, I didn't have any side effects, and I'm looking forward to my second dose. So thank you to Craig, Prabha for sharing with me and for organizing this event and all the panels.
Yeah, can I add another thank you? It was our CEO, RBK CEO, Ian Thomas, who managed to get the video from Angelica. So a big thank you to him. And now if we are okay, yes, we've got a couple of minutes now that this is brilliant work. So even if I say so myself, Iona, would you like to say whatever? I think you wanted to add a little something.
Thanks, Prabha. I think it's been a great opportunity for us to come together as panelists, and thank you, chairs, for the opportunity too, because we absolutely know that engaging with the community is absolutely vital. We want people, as I say, to be saying yes when the offer comes, and a part of that is having their questions answered. And as part of that, what I wanted to let people know is that we've been doing some work with Health Watch Kingston and the NHS and Kingston Voluntary Action. We've launched a survey. Let us know what you think about the COVID-19 vaccine. You can access it through the Health Watch Kingston website. It's also going to be on the RBK website, and it launches today. So we're keen to hear from you. So if people want to participate in that survey, please do so. Thank you.
Thanks, Iona. Thai, you wanted to?
Yeah, I'd just like to add my thank you to the community champions who have actually stepped up in promoting the take-up of vaccine. And doing all the videos, and there are so many videos going around. I did 3 of them, and I was interviewed by the BBC Radio Surrey on breakfast show yesterday morning as well. So we are doing our best to promote, and hopefully we manage to reach to many people and convince them. Thank you.
Thank you. I see you've come on the screen, so be mindful, we've only got 1 minute left. So if you did want to say something quick. Oh, he's gone. I think we've done pretty well. Is there any bit that we've missed out, or anybody else wants to say something? Oh, John's got locked out, he says, but anyway, I think if John started to talk, if as many of you will know, John, we won't finish it at 8 o'clock. So can I say thank you to everyone and to all our viewers, I hope, who've gained something really useful from our chatting today. So thank you.
Do you want to give John the last word?
Yes, no, John just says stay on the screen. So okay. Chris, thank you very much.